What if the way you've been taught to manifest is the very thing that's been blocking your manifestations? You've probably familiar with the traditional manifestation teachings. Visualize what you want. Think positive, focus on it until it comes into your life. But let's be honest. How often has that actually worked for you? How many times have you done everything right only to feel like the thing you wanted was still out of reach? There's a reason for that. And it's not because you're broken or unworthy or missing some secret ingredient. It's because the framework you were given was incomplete. It left out the most important part. The part that doesn't just teach you how to ask for what you want, but how to connect to the version of you that already lives the life you desire. And that's what this video is here to reveal. There's a hidden blueprint, one that shows you how to stop chasing what you want and start approaching manifestation from a completely different lens. This isn't about working harder. It's not even about thinking more positively. It's about stepping into an entirely new understanding of how reality responds to you and how your internal world is already creating the external conditions you experience. Because deep down, you've already felt it. You've had moments where you imagined something and it felt realer than the world around you. You've had flashes of knowing, gut instincts, signs and synchronicities that seem to whisper, "There's more to this than what you've been told." And those whispers? They weren't just coincidences. They were invitations. Invitations from a version of you that already exists. A self that isn't waiting for a miracle, but living in one. The truth is, manifestation isn't just about wanting something and hoping it shows up. And if you've been doing everything you were told, visualizing, journaling, saying affirmations, but still feel stuck, this video is here to offer you a different way forward. Because when you shift your understanding, you shift your experience. For decades, the dominant teaching in the manifestation world has sounded something like this. Ask for what you want. Visualize it clearly. Feel good about it. Believe that it's on its way. And eventually, the universe will deliver it to you. It's a comforting idea, and it's helped millions of people feel more hopeful, more empowered, more connected to the creative force of the universe. But it also contains a fundamental flaw. One that keeps most people stuck in a loop of hoping, waiting, and wondering why nothing's changing. The flaw is this. The traditional model assumes separation. It tells you to focus on something outside of yourself, something you don't yet have, something you hope to attract one day if you do everything just right. But that very idea, the idea that what you want is far away, is the reason it stays far away. Because the universe doesn't respond to your desires. It responds to your frequency. And this is where the blueprint begins to reveal itself. There isn't one single timeline you're moving through. There are infinite parallel realities, all existing simultaneously, all equally real and all available right now. In one of those timelines, you are already living the life you desire. Not metaphorically. That version of you already exists. This is quantum truth. In the quantum field, all potential states exist as possibilities. Reality doesn't unfold in a straight line. It responds to what you are tuned into. You don't attract things into your life from a distant location. You tune into the version of reality where those things are already true. It's not attraction, it's selection. And the selector is your vibration, your emotional state, your belief system, your dominant focus, and the identity you embody moment to moment. So when you're trying to manifest from a place of, I don't have it yet, but I hope it comes, you're locking yourself into the timeline where you don't have it. You're reinforcing the separation. You're focusing on the gap. That's why it feels like it's always on its way, but never quite here. Let's say you want financial abundance. In the traditional model, you're told to visualize money coming in, feel grateful as if it's already yours, and trust the process. But if your vibration is rooted in, I don't have enough, all you're doing is amplifying that signal. And the field will match it. Not by punishing you, but by reflecting your dominant state. Now let's look at it from the quantum model. You understand that there's already a version of you living in abundance. You realize that money isn't something you need to chase. It's something that already surrounds you in the version of reality you haven't fully tuned into yet. And instead of trying to get it, you ask, what would I think, feel, believe, and do if I already lived in that timeline? Now your focus shifts from attraction to alignment, from waiting to embodying. And as your frequency changes, the timeline you experience begins to shift too. You start to meet different people, you get new ideas, you make bolder decisions. Not because you forced them, but because you're resonating with a different version of reality, and reality is responding. This is the essence of quantum manifestation. And it's the core flaw in traditional models. They teach you to focus on the thing you want, but they don't teach you to become the version of you who naturally experiences it. Let's take another example, love. In the old paradigm, you're told to visualize your perfect partner. Write a list. Script your dream relationship. Maybe even imagine the wedding day. And those practices can absolutely help you get clear on what you want. But if you're still vibrating in loneliness, fear, or I'm not lovable, you'll stay locked in a timeline that mirrors those beliefs. Quantum manifestation asks a different question. If I was already in a healthy, loving relationship, who would I be? How would I walk through the world? What energy would I carry? What would I no longer tolerate? And as you shift your identity, you shift your reality. You don't attract the partner, you become the version of you who's already living that relationship, and reality responds accordingly. Now here's what's important to understand. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to force anything. You simply have to remember that every version of you already exists, and the one you experience is the one you're most vibrationally aligned with. So manifestation stops being about effort. It becomes about coherence. Coherence between your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, and your state of being. The reason so many people feel frustrated with manifestation is because they've been taught to visualize something while still thinking and feeling like the version of themselves who doesn't have it. It's like pressing the gas and the brakes at the same time. You're affirming one thing but believing another. You're imagining your dream life while emotionally anchored in doubt, fear, or unworthiness. And that incoherence creates static in the field. It keeps you circling the same loop. Quantum manifestation clears that up. It says, don't just imagine a different life. Match it. Don't just say the words. Shift the signal. Don't try to attract it. Tune into it. It's not magic. It's physics. And this changes everything. Because now your focus isn't on getting something you don't have. It's on aligning with what already exists. You're no longer trying to be worthy. You're recognizing that the version of you who has what you want already exists in a frequency where that experience is normal, obvious, and natural. And your job is to get closer to that version. So ask yourself, what does the version of me who's already living my dream life believe about themselves? How do they feel when they wake up? These questions aren't mental exercises. They're doorways. Each answer becomes a thread you can follow into a different timeline. Each moment of resonance becomes a step into a new identity. And identity is everything. Because your identity, the self you wake up as, speak from, and act through, is the anchor point for the reality you experience. Change your identity and the field responds. This is why some people make massive shifts in a short amount of time. It's not because they're lucky. It's because they've chosen a new frequency and refused to argue for the old one. They don't need evidence before they change. They become the evidence. And if you've ever had a moment, even one, where something you desired showed up faster than you expected, that was a glimpse. A moment where you unconsciously tuned into the timeline where it was already true. Quantum manifestation teaches you how to do that consciously, and not just once, but over and over, until it becomes your baseline. So what creates your reality? Not your words, not your vision boards, not your hopes, your frequency. And that frequency is shaped by what you consistently feel, believe, and embody. This is the missing link. And it's why so many people bounce from technique to technique, course to course, trying to find the method that finally works. But it's not about the method. It's about who you are when you're applying it. You could repeat a powerful affirmation 1,000 times, but if you're doing it from lack, desperation, or disbelief, you're just amplifying the signal of I don't have this yet. You could visualize your dream home every night, But if you wake up and continue living as the version of you who believes it's out of reach, you're stabilizing the timeline where it's always just a dream. Quantum manifestation asks you to stop waiting and start shifting. To stop thinking of your desires as things you chase and start treating them as versions of reality you can tune into. You don't manifest your dream life by reaching for it. You manifest it by stepping into the version of you who's already living it. And that's where we're headed next, because in the next segment, we'll show you how to do exactly that. We'll break down what it means to align with your desired reality, not just in concept, but in practice. You'll learn how to see your vision clearly, shift your beliefs, and create the emotional resonance that locks your new frequency in place. Because you're not waiting for your dream life to come to you. It's already here. Now it's time to meet it. If you're still with us, it means something is resonating, not just mentally, vibrationally. That matters, because the very act of feeling a pull toward this truth is proof that you're already beginning to align. But knowing there's a version of you who already lives your dream life is only the beginning. The next step, and the most powerful one, is learning how to tune into that version of you consistently, consciously, and with coherence. So let's talk about how alignment actually works. Not as a vague feeling, not as a spiritual buzzword, but as a measurable shift in your state of being that allows the quantum field to respond to your frequency with absolute precision. Alignment means that your vision, your beliefs, and your emotions all agree. When they do, the signal you send becomes clear, it becomes magnetic, it becomes undeniable. And that's when timelines shift. The first piece of the equation is vision. Vision is not a wish list. It's not about fantasizing. It's not even about desire. It's about specificity, precision, emotional clarity. You need to see it, not as a fantasy, but as a memory from the future, a felt, lived moment, one that your nervous system can anchor into. So instead of saying, I want to be wealthy, you see yourself waking up in your dream home, opening your eyes with peace, checking your phone to see a message confirming another payment. You feel the texture of the sheets. You hear the silence, you breathe differently. The clearer your vision, the easier it becomes for your body to accept it as normal. And the more normal it feels, the less resistance your system will hold when the shift begins. Because remember, the quantum field responds to what feels real, not what sounds nice, not what you're trying to force, but what your inner world accepts as truth. And that brings us to the second piece, belief. This is where most people get blocked. Because no matter how vivid your vision is, if your beliefs contradict it, your frequency will default to what your subconscious is still loyal to. You can't embody the timeline of expansion while carrying beliefs of limitation. So ask yourself, what do I believe is possible for me? What do I believe I deserve? What unconscious stories am I still rehearsing? What identities am I still attached to that contradict the version of me I want to become? Because here's the truth. The quantum field responds to your dominant signal. And if your conscious desire says one thing but your subconscious beliefs say another, you'll stay in energetic conflict. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. Beliefs are not facts, they're patterns, and patterns can be disrupted, they can be rewritten, but only if you're willing to look at them honestly. So begin identifying the beliefs that belong to your old timeline. The ones that were passed down from your family, your culture, your past self, and begin replacing them with beliefs that support the reality you're stepping into. This isn't an overnight process, but it begins the moment you decide, I will no longer be loyal to the version of me who doesn't believe in what I now know is real. And that leads to the third and most magnetic piece, feeling. Emotion is the language of the field. You shift timelines through resonance, through embodiment, through feeling as if the new reality is already true. Not pretending, not faking, feeling. You start practicing the emotional frequency of your desired reality before it arrives. That means cultivating gratitude, calm, confidence, worthiness, whatever emotions align with the version of you who already lives that life. This is where the shift becomes real. Because when you begin to feel as if it's already true, you begin making decisions as if it's already true. You begin seeing opportunities that match your new vibration. You begin holding boundaries that protect your alignment. You stop waiting and you start responding to life from the identity you've chosen. This is not wishful thinking. This is quantum anchoring. The version of you who already has the thing you want feels differently than the version of you who's still waiting for it. And when you match that emotional state before the evidence arrives, you collapse the timeline. You shorten the distance. You allow the shift to take root. So to align with the vibration of your desired reality, you must see it clearly, vividly, and specifically. You must believe it by identifying and replacing old subconscious scripts. And you must feel it with emotional coherence and energetic integrity. These aren't steps, they're frequencies. And when they're active within you, reality begins to bend. You'll notice subtle signs first. More synchronicities, more ease, more alignment in your relationships, your thoughts, your body. Then the outer shifts begin. New opportunities, unexpected support, timelines collapsing in your favor. But it all begins internally. The field doesn't respond to force, it responds to alignment. So here's your invitation. Stop trying to become the version of you who lives your dream life, and start being them. Think their thoughts, feel their emotions. Move with their confidence, act with their clarity, speak with their certainty, even in small ways, especially in small ways. Because the smallest act of alignment is more powerful than the loudest affirmations spoken from doubt. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Willing to stop rehearsing the frequency of your past. Willing to notice when you're slipping into the old signal. Willing to return over and over to the vibration that matches where you're going. And as you do, your reality won't just change. It will reorganize around your new frequency. Not because you forced it, because you became it. And that's what quantum manifestation really is. The art of becoming. So if you're ready to align, begin now. So now you know the truth. You're not here to attract your dream life. You're here to align with the version of reality where it already exists. You've seen how vision, belief, and emotional resonance determine your vibration. You've seen how the quantum field doesn't wait for effort, it responds to coherence. But knowing this is only part of the journey. Most people don't get stuck because they don't understand the mechanics. They get stuck because they fall into subtle, familiar traps that slowly pull them back into the frequency they were trying to leave. So if you're serious about shifting timelines, you need to recognize these traps and refuse to participate in them. The first and most common mistake is slipping back into the old identity without realizing it. You start your day with clarity, with alignment, maybe even a sense of expansion. But then something small happens. A frustrating email, an unexpected bill, a moment of doubt, and suddenly you're back in the emotional and mental habits of the version of you who doesn't believe it's possible. This is where most shifts are lost. Not in dramatic breakdowns, but in quiet returns to the old frequency. Your mind will try to convince you that the old self is safer, that it's more reasonable to stay grounded in what's familiar, that there's no proof things are actually changing. And if you're not paying attention, you'll start rehearsing the same reactions, the same thoughts, the same energy, without even noticing. But you can't shift into a new timeline while continuing to behave like the version of you who belongs to the old one. The field doesn't respond to the past, it responds to what you're embodying now. Another trap is impatience. You align, you feel amazing, and then you immediately start looking around for evidence. When it doesn't show up right away, your energy shifts. Doubt creeps in. You question the process, you spiral. And in that spiral, you start matching the frequency of lack again. Impatience is a symptom of mistrust. You don't shift by rushing, you shift by remaining steady, especially when the results haven't shown up yet. That's the test most people fail. But if you can hold the signal a little longer, if you can trust that alignment itself is proof you're on the right path, you'll move through the threshold that stops most people. Then there's the trap of consumption without embodiment. This is a big one. You hear a powerful message, you get inspired, you nod in agreement, maybe you even feel emotional, but then you don't act. You don't shift anything, you don't speak differently, move differently, decide differently. You feel the pull, but you don't follow it. And so your energy stays exactly the same. The field doesn't care what you agree with intellectually, it reflects what you live. And this is the hardest truth for most people to swallow. That being inspired isn't enough. That knowing the principles isn't the same as applying them. That your shift doesn't begin until your identity starts changing in the small, ordinary moments where no one is watching. This is where you begin to separate yourself from the 99% of people who want to shift, but don't. You recognize the moment when you're tempted to shrink back into old habits, and instead, you hold the signal. You catch the moment when you start rehearsing an old belief, and instead, you pause, you breathe, you choose a new one. You don't chase perfection, you chase coherence. And most importantly, you don't confuse slow progress with failure. Because reality doesn't shift on your timeline. It shifts when your vibration stabilizes. So you keep showing up, you keep tuning in, you keep responding as the version of you who lives the life you desire, even when the outer world hasn't caught up yet. That's not delusion, that's leadership. And here's something you need to hear. If you're watching this video, if you've made it this far, it means something important. You're not here to dabble. You're not here to just think about new realities. You're here to step into one. Because you wouldn't have made it to this moment if there wasn't already a version of you vibrating at this frequency. You wouldn't feel this truth in your bones unless a part of you already lived it. This video didn't find you by accident. It's a mirror. It's a reflection of the shift you've already begun. And now you get to choose. You can let this be another inspiring moment that fades by tomorrow, or you can let this be the beginning of everything. You can go back to the old vibration, the thoughts, the choices, the stories that feel safe but small. Or you can anchor the signal that brought you here. That's your power. So here's your challenge. Declare the version of you you're choosing to become. Say it out loud. Write it in the comments. Speak it in the mirror. Let the field hear your decision. Because the moment you declare it, the moment you take even one action that reflects your new frequency, you begin shifting timelines in real time. This isn't theory, this is the blueprint, and now you have it. Now live it.